Hello, this is Talking Europe on France 24. I'm Catherine Nicholson. Today we are talking money. Mark Twain famously said, "The lack of money is the root of all evil." Here in Europe, a surfeit of dirty money is causing headaches right now. There's a growing mountain of evidence that illicitly obtained cash has been flowing into the bloc from all sorts of places. Azerbaijan, the UK, British Virgin Islands, Russia and more. Money launderers now firmly in the sights of the European Commission. In today's programme, we'll be debating how bad the problem is and whether solutions are indeed in the pipeline. We are joined by two guests. French MEP from the Greens group, Eva Joly, a former public prosecutor and judge known as a specialist in financial crime and corruption cases. Hello to you.
Hello.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank
and
you for
joining us,
inviting me.
we have from Malta's Labour Party, Alfred Sant, former Prime Minister of Malta, now MEP with the Socialists and Democrats group. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we're going to start off then to give our viewers a bit of a taste of what kind of case we're talking about. Our team in Paris has put together this report about a recent scandal involving the Estonian branch of Denmark's biggest lender, Danske Bank.
It was a shock financial revelation. In September, Denmark's biggest bank, Danske Bank, admitted that payments amounting to €200 billion, many suspicious, had moved through the branch between 2007 and 2015.
The Estonians had warned that this is going on, and these warnings were not heeded. So it took longer than it should have taken us, both Danish authorities, Estonian authorities, to end it, because there was a clear lack of quick cooperation, and I think we should all learn from this. It's not enough to just send letter and accept that you were not taken seriously.
At his State of the Union speech on September 12th, Jean-Claude Juncker outlined proposals to give the European Banking Authority a powerful new mandate to impose sanctions directly on the banks of member states. This would make the EBA the ultimate arbiter in the most serious cross-border money laundering cases.
Anti-money laundering supervision has failed all too often in the EU. Enhancing the mandate of the EBA would ensure different supervisors cooperate and exchange information, and that anti-money laundering rules are enforced effectively across EU countries.
In related recent news, the anti-corruption NGOs Transparency International and Global Witness published a report denouncing poorly managed golden visa schemes that mean a wealthy enough individual can pay for citizenship, allowing them to potentially evade tax and launder money while moving and working freely within the EU.
Once we have some weak points in the EU where it is easy to enter the space, the whole of Europe has a problem.
The two NGOs are calling for action. They have set out a number of recommendations, including the need to broaden anti-money laundering rules so that they cover all those involved in the golden visa industry.
Well, let's come back to our guests now for our debate. This is, of course, money laundering is a criminal activity. There are serious concerns that it has been massively financing terrorist attacks that we know have been such a problem in Europe in recent years. Alfred Sant, how have we got to this position? It seems like something has to change.
Well, you have to look at the overall picture as well. When capital controls came to be abolished in the West, flows of finance went right through the system without any kind of monitoring, any kind of surveillance, tied to the globalization that was also going on. So you had these massive flows of finance going through the whole banking, insurance, private system, with no controls at all. And obviously, where before there used to be some kind of checks as to how monies were being moved through, they no longer exist. So the whole thing has become quite an endemic process now, and what we're doing is trying to ride and run after the developments by which money gets laundered, taxes get dodged, and money gets hidden.
Eva Joly, are things moving in the right direction in Europe?
Well, if we judge by the number of scandals, I think we can say that this criminality, which carries 10 years of imprisonment in Denmark, for instance, it is total impunity, and people are talking about lessons learned. But I want to say that I think that time is over to learn. And this criminality has been going on for decades, and it is getting worse. What are we talking about? In Danske Bank, we are talking about 240 billion euros.
10 times the GDP of Estonia.
That was what I wanted to say. They have laundered every year equivalent of the GDP. And so they cannot pretend they didn't know, they didn't see. Money laundering is a business. It's a business model. People are earning money by laundering illicit money from Russia or from Azerbaijan or from other places. And as long as banks do this business as a business model, I think we have to punish, we have to be able to conduct inquiries. You know, for the Danske Bank, the problem is how was that possible that it happened? That is institutional problem, but it is also what is the responsibility of the head of the bank, of the persons involved. And I think they have a case to answer.
Well, the member states very much responsible for this individually at this point. If I come back to you, Alfred Sant, I know that you've said recently that Malta has been unfairly targeted by the Justice Commissioner, Eva Joly, over this. But in Malta, if I quote the report from the Panama Papers Committee, it said that there's been no police investigation despite evidence from the Financial Intelligence Analysis Unit of serious risks of money laundering.
Europa was targeting a bank called Pilatus in Malta. And she was right about that because there were problems with monitoring what was going on.
Charges have been brought against the bank's
but the point
owner.
there is that Pilatus is a very small fish in a big pond with big whales around. I mean, we speak about Danske Bank, but back-to-back with Danske Bank, there was Deutsche Bank as well involved. Deutsche Bank was in parallel with Danske carrying the stuff through.
But just because a bigger bank is doing it as well, that doesn't mean a small bank money laundering is okay.
Doesn't it sound curious that you suddenly start talking about a very small bank in a very small country and not talking at all about Deutsche Bank and about Danske Bank?
Well, we could talk about lots of different banks. Eva Joly, is this, are member states being victimised?
Of course they
Malta is a small member state.
I do not think we can say that, because in Malta you have the Prime Minister who went to the marriage of the founder of Pilatus Bank. There are a lot of photos, you can see them in a luxury environment. There are links between the political elite and the head of Pilatus Bank, the Iranian funder. And this is also why Daphne Caruana was killed. So I think in Malta we really have a problem. They are killing journalists, and their regulator are not able to stop the Iranian funder of this bank. They gave him a banking license, and the case only started because this man was arrested by the American authorities. And we know that Daphne Caruana wrote on her blog on the links between this bank and the Prime Minister. And you know what he did? He just made new elections, and he thought that winning the elections made him invulnerable for the accusations. And today they have arrested those who carried the arms against Daphne Caruana, but these people don't have any motivation for killing her, and they are not looking for the backmen.
But it does seem
very
like
serious
I
concerns
think this is a very tendentious way of presenting facts in Malta. I mean, people who don't know Malta will be very impressed by that. I know Malta, and I think this is a very tendentious way of presenting facts. Pilatus Bank was a small investment bank, okay, probably connected to certain ways of doing money deals from Azerbaijan. And its president was really caught in the US because he was trying to get around US sanctions on Iran, which is what the EU is doing now at the moment, given that sanctions have been lifted. So the whole point is this. I mean, okay, let's investigate Malta. Let's talk about Malta in a non-tendentious, caricatural way. But also let's focus on where the big fish are. And the big fish haven't been mentioned by Madame Jourova, for instance.
Well, I'm sure you can understand in this programme we're talking about Malta because, of course, you are from Malta. As we said, there are many cases around Europe that are being looked into.
Is it a systemic
in Latvia,
kind of problem?
in Sweden, in many places.
In Germany, in France, and they don't get mentioned.
So why are these not being investigated, Eva Joly?
Well, looks like white-collar crime is difficult to get convictions. And there is a kind of resistance against starting inquiries. And we could talk about the UK, for instance. You know, the Royal Bank of Scotland. They got £40 billion to get out of the crisis. And they were caught in the Panama Papers, helping rich UK people not to pay taxes.
Well, the European Commission has
there
recently
is no
strengthened...
inquiry. There is no inquiry. And this is the point. What are they waiting for?
Well, currently
how many examples do we need to start the criminal inquiries and to have convictions and people sentenced?
Well, there are moves currently. The European Commission in July strengthened its anti-money laundering directive, the fifth anti-money laundering directive. In September, we heard Jean-Claude Juncker proposing new powers for the European Banking Authority. Are you on board with these proposals?
I am, but you know, the European Banking Authority today, they have 1.8 person to take care of the control of the banks. So
you want to see them have massively increased powers? Because there could be problems with that in the member states, surely.
Yes, we need to increase the means. It is a good idea to use the European Banking Authority, but the people in the forefront are the national authorities and the national criminal investigations. And this is what is not being done today. And for me, because of the impunity, the total impunity, not only in Malta, but also in England, this is nourishing the populism. Impunity is less in France because of the investigative magistrate and because of the fact that the victims can start the investigations.
I mean,
I'm not trying to hit at France, but for instance, the Cahuzac case. It didn't come through on
Jérôme
magistrate. Yeah. It came through the magistrate. But it came through the press, through the media.
He was sentenced. So you know, but that is what you are not doing, because you have the police. You have the police under control. There are no independence, and nothing's happening. So, I mean, it is really a serious problem for Europe.
Well, these are strong accusations that we've heard from other quarters as well, not just from Eva Joly, that there's too much political influence in police and judicial matters in Malta. What's your response to that?
I think it's an outsider's view that's fed by partisan points from Malta. I mean, I've been living in Malta for a long, long time. I know that there are failings in how the police is being run, how the judiciary sometimes operates, but saying that it's all subject to political manipulation is just said by people who just don't know Malta.
So would you support, and do you believe that your country would support greater powers, as we've been talking about, to the European Banking Authority and the Commission?
Of course, beyond that, I've been claiming in this parliament for a long time that the key to doing things is increasing transparency across and insisting on transparency right across. The first step towards surveillance, monitoring and controls, given the fact that we don't have capital controls, which is something I regret. Given the fact that we don't have capital controls, insist on transparency right through and push transparency and insist on that as the first step.
Okay, I'd just like to talk about one related issue. We heard a little mention in our reports, so-called golden passports or golden residency. 4 member states of the EU sell, essentially, passports, and 12 others sell, for want of a better word, residency. There are commissions for the companies that broker them running into the millions of euros every year. They're very lucrative. Cyprus, for example, has reaped almost 5 billion euros since 2013. Malta, 718 million since 2014. But there are problems. Transparency International, Global Witness recently released a report saying that they open the EU's doors to criminals who are then able to operate all throughout the European Union. I recently spoke to Spain's Europe Minister. We can hear from Luis Marco Aguirreano when I asked him if this was important to Spain's government to crack down on this.
Our own government is not going to close an eye on that and is going to follow that very, very closely. Again, I am not a specialist myself, but it's not something which is between the urgencies and priorities of the current government.
So not an urgency, not a priority for the Spanish government. Eva Joly, should this be a priority?
I think it's a very strange thing that you can sell citizenship. Citizenship is not a commodity, it's a value. So it should not be allowed to sell citizenships. And what we have seen in Malta, in Cyprus and in other places is that the control on the money coming in, where it comes from, how is it that this person want to become a citizen of Malta? There is not controls that are good enough. So the first step should be total transparency on who is getting this citizenship, because it's not only for Malta, they have access to all Schengen area, and it is doors for criminal money coming in.
So you're agreeing with the Commissioner Jourova there. Alfred Sant, your group, the Socialists and Democrats, wants to end this. Is that something you support?
I'm not so very happy with the citizenship schemes, whatever you want to call them. But I think they're legitimate in the sense that governments that decide to do them, they are legitimately doing it. And in fact, doing it on this kind of basis like Malta and Cyprus are doing it is more transparent than the way France or Austria or Germany do it. They do it underhandedly. There's nothing said, nothing declared, nothing stated. It's just an agreement between the security services or the Ministry of Finance or the President or the Prime Minister to give you, on a certain basis, your citizenship. And that's certainly not transparent.
All right, I think we could probably do an entire different debate about this golden passport and residency issue, but I'd like to thank you both. We have run out of time. Thank you for taking part in our debate today. Alfred Sant and Eva Joly, thanks both. Thanks to you as well for watching. That's where we're going to wrap up our programme for this week. We'll see you soon here on France 24 for more European news.
Idi Amin Dada, Uganda's despotic leader, presided over his country in the 70s. He is remembered in very different ways. Some recall the hundreds of thousands who were killed and tortured. However, those who were born after that horrific era laud his lesser-known accomplishments. For them, he was as a builder, a nationalist and a separatist, the leader of time in Uganda's history, which they regard as a bygone golden era.
We revisit the compiler of Idi Amin Dada here on France 24.